Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 8, Episode 7.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're sitting in Hollywood with a young entrepreneur. Our guest today started sewing his own clothes and over a relatively short period of time built an entire brand that has already become his career. Welcome to the show, owner and creator of Pythia Clothing, Jack Lyons.
Thank you.
Dude, thanks for coming out here. This is kind of like last moment. I love how, well, I shouldn't say I love it because to me it's really stressful that I don't have all these interviews lined up way ahead of time, but I've kind of come to figure this out off all these LA trips. This is like my fourth time coming out here to record that like, you can't set stuff up super far in advance.
Definitely. It's
Everything goes so fast,
sure.
right? Yeah, which you know, because you're not from here originally either.
No.
Did you feel that when you moved, because you're from San Francisco, right?
Yes.
So when you moved out here to LA not that long ago, was that kind of an adjustment for you?
Yeah, I was really excited just to come out here and meet everyone though. So it was like I was setting up meetings every day if I could, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how it works. It's crazy because you can get a hold of people you never thought you would be able to just because they randomly have an hour here or there.
Yep.
You know, if you're willing to kind of work on the fly like that, to me, it's just like so fast paced being from Wisconsin where everything's so mellow. I'm just like, I can't do this. But I've kind of come to adjustment. Anyways, who are you and what are you passionate about?
My name's Jack. I'm from San Francisco, California, and I'm passionate about making clothes.
From the beginning, right? You started sewing when you were in college.
Yep.
And my understanding is you got a sewing machine first to work on your shoes?
Yeah, so I watched a lot of Shark Tank growing up, so I wanted to start a business. And through that, I was like tinkering with my shoes one day, and I had this idea if I could put Velcro on the back and slide them on, you wouldn't have to tie your shoes anymore. So I came with that idea. I bought the sewing machine and tried sewing them on, realizing I needed a way bigger machine for that to happen, but I still like hand sewed it on, and that was the first thing I ever made clothing wise.
And that's like the hardest thing to actually work with is a fabric of a shoe. I mean, you were using a Converse, right? So it's like a canvas and
it was hard, yeah.
Somewhat usable in comparison to other shoes, but still, of all things to pick, you know, you could have just like taken in a shirt and made it more fitted or added a pocket, but
yeah,
you know,
no, that's the thing. I didn't
shoes.
know anything about making clothes. I didn't know how hard that was gonna be, but I just had the idea, and it was like I went to Joann's, bought the sewing machine, bought a zipper, and bought some shoes.
And quickly realized that Joann's, if you're not using discounts, you're like drastically overpaying.
Oh yeah, I made that account really quick.
Yeah, you have to do that. So how can people best follow you? How can they see the things that you make? Because obviously you have your personal account, but your business is kind of like a totally different thing. So if you can kind of plug both, and how could people get a hold of you if they wanted to?
Yeah, I'd say the best way to follow along is my Instagram at Pythia, Pythia. My personal is mostly just like myself and kind of just updates about my life. So I keep most of the brand kind of stuff on Pythia, and I try and keep it really personal. So I treat both kind of like my personal account, but I keep one kind of business related and the other just personal. Yeah,
you took like a very unique approach to it, and I want to get into that because I don't understand how that works. So most people, when they create a brand, their first sales are from their friends, their family, the people that know them directly, and that's kind of like how it starts to grow. However, when you started Pythia, you did it totally like anonymously. Really?
Correct.
How in the world were you able to get even the first person to want to buy something from somebody that they have no idea who it is?
Right. So I just figured it out, I guess. The one thing I knew is I didn't want to tell my friends. I didn't want my school to know. I didn't want anyone to know because I was self-conscious about it. So I didn't want to be the fashion kid or the kid making clothes or trying to start a brand. But I had this idea, and I was like, this is a bad idea, and I want to push this. So I thought that if I grew globally, I would then become popular locally. So I ran like ads in Russian. Like I just tried tapping in all over the world, and I realized quickly like this isn't going to really benefit because people aren't going to order from an American brand. They might interact, but maybe those first 100 followers kind of got me some interaction, and then from there it was just like pushing, like getting on any Instagram page I could. Any person that liked my photo, I'm sending you a message trying to have a conversation with you. So for this first 5,000 followers, I'd say I probably talked to every single one of them, had like a real conversation with them.
Yeah, I always explain to people when they ask me like how to build an Instagram following, and not like I have a huge one, but for like my little town, I have somewhat of one. But I always explain to people, really all it comes down to is interacting.
Yep.
Like that's it. It's just people don't really do it that often. But I'll tell you what, if you own a brand or a company or whatever, and you even just leave like an actual comment on someone's page that's not just an emoji, they're all of a sudden going to go, oh, this person cares about what I have to say. Cool. And they become really personally invested in the brand.
Yeah, you got to kind of put yourself in like someone else's shoes that doesn't know what this brand is, or that it's just, everything's just someone behind a screen. So, but I remember not owning a brand or not knowing about that. And when like a brand page would like my photo or whatever, I might not follow them or whatever, but I think it's like interesting and intriguing. So I'd click on their page, and even just a click on the page is some algorithm boost for your brand. So
yeah, it makes a big difference. That's why social media is like incredibly prevalent nowadays as far as like marketing and all that goes. How did you, when you started those conversations, did you tell them who you were? Like
no,
through that
I
page?
just like said like I like their style or I like their page and would love to get them a piece or whatever.
Did you end up shipping a lot of pieces to people for free, or how did you do that?
I've shipped a lot of clothes for free. Maybe in the beginning it was like a 50% discount or something. I always made it like reasonable, and I try not to give free clothes because it kind of sets a standard of getting free clothes. But if that's going to be the breakthrough piece for that person, then I was always down to do it.
Yeah, I mean, people need to understand that you have to really invest, whether that's time, whether that's money, that's energy, that's relationship building or whatever. Nothing just comes from nothing. You have to build that in some kind of way. And as an example, and I'll give you some when you leave, I print stickers by the 1,000.
Yep.
And I hand them like 5 out at a time to people all the time. And they're like, and in my store, a lot of times people are like, how much is it? And I'm like, no, please just distribute these amongst people. And that's just like a consistent, I'm just investing in getting the name out further and further and further, right? In the same way that like if I looked at what I'm worth hourly, the amount of time that I have to spend on Instagram, it's not really free, right? I'm investing in one way or another. And sometimes sending clothing to the right person, or sending, because I'll do that too. Like I'll give guests or whatever stuff, because it's like, these are the people that really know what my show is about because they were involved directly. They're the ones I really want to have my merchandise. I want them to like enjoy it and see, oh, this person has cool stuff. And I want them to talk about it with other people. And that's kind of the easiest way to get them to do that. Granted, you own an apparel company that's like crazy fly, so I don't know that you want to wear my merchandise, but even so,
no, of course,
I'm gonna have to send you some stuff at the very least.
But yeah, about that, I was watching Shark Tank last night actually,
sick. And
some companies' acquisition cost of a customer, just getting them in the database, was $41. So whether that's them paying for ads, whatever, but it kind of like, I was just like, I could walk down Hollywood Boulevard, give a shirt that costs $7 to make, and acquire 500 people at $7 a pop right there. Like, there's so many ways to acquire customers or bring people into the family, and it's just like that initial like showing gratitude or trying to make conversation or interact with them.
Well, people got to look long term, right? You got to look at like, okay, this is an investment into this person. And granted, I know that not 100% of the time it's going to actually like turn into a lifelong customer, but even if it only does 10% of the time, that one person is going to bring so many other people into the brand that you didn't invest in, right? So it's all about kind of like looking at it in the long term in that kind of way. What was the first thing that you sold? Because obviously you didn't sell those shoes when you were dinking around with that. What was the first thing you made that you actually sold?
I actually did sell a pair of shoes. I had this idea, and I went to Southern California to meet with a friend. I was going through kind of a rough time at the time. Went to Southern California, met with his friends, and I told them about this idea. And one guy there took me up on it. He's like, I want a pair of shoes. So I sold a pair before they even existed. But the first pair I made was for my cousin, just as a prototype. So I worked on those 2 pairs at the same time. And then shoes are a bit tricky because it's like, I picked like one of each size, like 10 different pairs. So I mostly just use those to mess around with and do prototypes and take photos of. But the first thing I sold like was a black t-shirt that said Pythia across it. And I embroidered prototype on the bottom of every single one. So that was like the initial prototype t-shirt that I sold. And that was just kind of a goal of like, I bought 40 of them. If I can push these 40, then maybe I can push 50 and then 60 and just keep going from there.
So you came up with the name Pythia really early then?
Definitely, yeah.
Oh, okay. And you've told it before on the show or on other shows, but just so people know what it is, what is Pythia again?
So I learned about it in a college course, and we were going over Greek mythology, and the Pythia was the high priestess of the Temple of Apollo. So it wasn't a person named Pythia, it was a position, and it was always a woman. But if a person wanted to go ask the god Apollo, like there's no god you can go talk to, but they believed that the Pythia could communicate with them. And it was an ancient substances class. So she was like high on hallucinogens. I didn't even know that, but
Sure.
she's the middle woman between the god Apollo and the people. So I thought that as like, Apollo doesn't have to be seen, talk to these people himself. He can kind of do his own thing, but speak through this thing called the Pythia. So that was my idea. I took that and I was like, I'm going to take the Pythia, same meaning, and speak through the Pythia to the people.
Do you think that the majority of people that buy Pythia know how it's pronounced? I'm just curious because I didn't at the time.
Yeah, I do a lot of polls and it's normally about like 65-35. So
interesting. Cool.
There's a lot of people that say Pythia. And
Yeah.
I kind of leave it to the people. Like if you want to say whatever, that's fine.
Yeah,
a lot
sure.
of people are really defensive about which way it's said. So I think people take ties to whatever they first pronounce it as, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, and then they don't want to admit that they're wrong. When people are wrong, they like tend to double down on like, no. And it's like, there's no point in picking a fight about it. So when you did the prototypes, is that where you first had the idea of doing these one-of-ones? I know one-of-ones now is like a thing. I have another friend who has a clothing company out in Minneapolis in my zone that I interviewed. And his brand's dope, actually. I'll show you. This dude is hustling. He is sleeping on a mattress in a warehouse, like where he's printing and like creating art of, and he's doing art, like doing music shows and stuff. They have their own little record label with all the homies, and like he just had a pop-up shop in Urban Outfitters in St. Paul, like with all the stuff he's hand making right there. It's like similar to your story, just like in a little bit smaller scale in my zone. But anyways, he does the one-on-ones too, and that is kind of like becoming a thing. But when did you start with it? Was it with those prototypes and you just saw like movement with it?
I originally like wanted to get into making clothes, and I was looking at manufacturing costs, and I didn't have much money at the time. So I had the sewing machine and I wanted to make really cool hoodies, but the only way I saw myself doing that without like waiting months, paying a bunch of money to get like 100 made, was just making one-on-ones. And then through that, I saw it as like a learning process to make prototypes to manufacture them eventually. So turn these prototypes into products. And also saw it as just a great way of marketing. Like I could have a conversation with the person that wants this one-on-one, and it's like, I'm connecting with them, they're connecting with me, and then I deliver this piece that they actually care about, which is really meaningful. And it also was a great way to get on like DJs, rappers, etc., because they want that personal piece, and it's a lot easier to send them like a one-on-one item compared to just a random hoodie that you're dropping 100 of.
Who's the first person that you got to wear your stuff that you're really kind of stoked about?
Yeah, the first people were Cray, her boyfriend Keizo, the DJ Nightmare, the producer Chase the Money. Those were like in the first 10 prototypes. So that was pretty early for sure.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else about kind of marketing in that way earlier this week, and he was saying we're talking about perceived value, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, if nobody knows where this value comes from, then it doesn't matter. A t-shirt can be $5 and people won't buy it. But all of a sudden, if Jay-Z wears it, it means, okay, Jay-Z thinks this is valuable. Therefore, now there's that perception of it being valuable. That's why it's important to get in other people's hands, right? That's why influencers and stuff end up coming about and having careers in that kind of way, because people trust those, the judgment of these people, which makes sense. Like I can think of like the people I look up to, certain pro skateboarders or whatever that I've always thought were the coolest, whatever they like.
Exactly.
I'm like, dang, like I kind of dig that.
Yeah, it's social proof.
Yeah, absolutely. To paint the picture of what Pythia is, because I kind of have an idea after watching stuff on YouTube. I've seen some of the stuff you're making, obviously seeing stuff that you're literally wearing at the moment. If the person listening doesn't have a visual, can you kind of paint the picture of what Pythia is, the kind of direction of it, why people would want it so they understand?
Definitely. Yeah, I'd say my inspiration's kind of from like 90s alternative underground scene, but most of my collections are kind of theme based. So I went to Ireland and I'm created a collection for St. Patrick's Day next year. Like just I'm mostly inspired by my environment, so I just go on that. And then I think the ultimate goal with Pythia is just being innovative. Like started off with the zipper shoes, and now I'm going into more cut and sew. Like the jacket I'm wearing, you can zip it up, but instead of like, there's 3 zippers on the hood, so you can unzip the outer 2, so it's a flap. But just trying to like kind of break boundaries within that cut and sew realm, and then keep on with the themes and just be inspired by my surroundings.
How do you do that though, with how difficult it is to the reason that people aren't being innovative with cut and sew is because it's really hard to have that stuff made with it being like, without it being incredibly expensive. Like how are you kind of even navigating that?
Yeah, I'm just starting to like be able to do that now that I kind of do have like a customer base where I can feel comfortable selling 100 jackets. So it's been great being able to like test the waters with all these things that I've wanted to make. But up until then, it was like I was talking about prototypes and just making kind of like the bare minimum version and getting that overall idea for the product, and then continuing to like show that to the audience. And then once you feel like enough people are ready to buy it or are interested, that's when you should take that leap of faith and get it made.
It's really hard to take that leap of faith because it doesn't always work out.
Definitely.
You know, it's discouraging. Like when people ask me what are like challenges with owning my skateboard shop, one of the biggest ones I say is knowing what to buy. Because especially for me, a lot of times I have to pre-book things, say 6 months in advance or something. Trends come and go so fast that it's like, I will spend money on things that just don't move at all. And I just eat all that costs. And it's so hard to try to guess, which is part of the reason I'm not like massive in the apparel game. Like I sell a lot of stuff that is my merchandise and I'm glad some people like it. But maybe I'm just like underselling myself, but I think a lot of people buy my merchandise just because they like the store and like me and my show more than the merchandise itself.
I think it's a lot of like trend guessing rather than following trends.
You have to
with
predict
Pythia,
it.
I honestly try and stay away from seeing what other creators are making. Like I always follow my homies and stuff and respect other people's stuff. But when it comes to like, if I would rather see the coolest jacket I've ever seen or not see it, I'd rather not see it every time, because it's going to cloud my vision for what's hot at the moment and make me want to go down a path that's not my own. So I think it's just going down your own lane and like making, in your case, picking your favorite skateboards and making your community like those favorite skateboards.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it, is just being genuine in that way, because realistically, even if they don't like it, if I love it that much, somebody probably will, just because of that energy that's behind it. What's your favorite thing you've made so far? Like it's probably something recently, because that happens with people, right? As they make things, the next thing they make is their favorite, then the next thing's their favorite, but like in recent memory anyways.
Definitely. My favorite thing I've made so far is this jacket I'm wearing with like the 3 zippers. I like things that I thought of a long time ago. Like I thought of this jacket when I was snowboarding and I wanted to take a drink of water, and when I was unzipping it, you have to pull that Velcro flap over and then pull the zipper down. It always gets stuck, and then you're like trying to get this unjammed while you're on a ski lift, and it's scary. Whereas with this one, I can just unzip the 2 outer zippers and pull it down really easy. So there's that. And then I'll talk about one thing that's not made yet, but I made a book where it's like 8 pages of non-colored in t-shirt designs, non-colored in pants, hoodies, etc. So it's like a coloring book for making your own clothing collection, and it's all perforated squares, so you can like draw your t-shirt for that collection, rip that out, go to the hat section, draw your hat for that collection, rip that out. So I think that's like kind of my favorite accessory that I'm working on, and then clothing wise, the jacket.
Yeah, the jacket you talked about in a different interview, so it's kind of surreal and cool that like, oh, the thing I just listened to you talk about, you wanted to make, now you're wearing. It's pretty sick. Yeah. Pretty sick. And I love, I'm glad that you can recognize that in the entrepreneurship world, because it's one of my favorite things about doing what I do is that there's zero limitations at all. You don't have to make money off of a book that you can just make it because you want to make it.
Exactly.
And realistically, that can have that ripple effect of somebody discovered that and really liked it. And even if you didn't make money on it, that's what got them to see your brand and that money will come later anyways.
Definitely. That's why I think like doing passion projects and putting your money into things that maybe won't make money but are really cool to you, that's like, throw that in the marketing budget. Like that's straight up what's going to bring a lot of diehard fans to your page and like stick with you. And they might not even buy clothing. I don't really buy clothing often. But if I like someone and I like what they're creating, then I'm going to invest in a t-shirt just because I want to support. So,
well, and there's so many ways to support beyond that anyways. If people just like the brand, you know what I mean? Even if they're not buying anything, they can share it and comment and whatever, and somebody else is going to see that. That's why I tell people all the time is like, anytime somebody, and I have like a good number of people that share episodes and stuff pretty consistently, and I try to respond to them through the DMs and tell them periodically, like, I know you do this frequently. I just want you to know how much I appreciate that you do this every single time. It actually does mean a lot, because you would pay a lot of money actually, like through like if you're paying through like Facebook ads or like Instagram ads or whatever to actually get into those, extra couple hundred unique people or whatever. It's actually costs a lot of money to do that.
On average, let's say they get like 300, 400 people. That's 400 impressions you'd be paying on an ad for. And it's not even probably as organic or as the same audience you want.
Right.
So definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely got to thank people for that kind of stuff. I do that every time as well. other than when it's like a part of a giveaway or something, we have to repost your story. I can't really do it for every person then, but
Yeah.
kind of tying it back to that appreciative part of it is that's how you build a community.
Yeah, I mean, you have to avoid like being over heavy on that because
Definitely.
like the point is people are there for your content, not for other people's content. But to have every fifth thing you post be something you just like from a friend, people already do that with random songs that they
Yep.
like. You know what I mean? From G-Eazy or something. So I mean, it's not a big investment on their end, but it does actually help a lot if they're not interested or can't really spend the money on the actual apparel.
A lot of people take it as their opportunity to be like forward or ahead of the curve by showing like underground brands or songs. So
Yeah. There's that
I
cool
think it's
factor.
definitely like a wave that's going to be coming, is like people sharing things that other people haven't seen, like just like how everyone loves their like underground shop or Spotify playlist, or being like really good at SoundCloud, like that kind of stuff. Like I think that's coming.
Totally understand. You've been able to like, and I've seen this watching the apparel game at this point. Drops obviously are like how everyone's been able to do things and how it's been able to be successful. I have yet to ever do that or fully understand how to make that effective. Like, I put it this way, people give me advice all the time and they're like, you should do this because I see this happening, right? But my business understanding tells me, okay, but there's a reason that works and I don't understand the reason. I can't just do it, right? You don't just do a drop. That doesn't work that way. So can you explain how that actually works and how you can make one of those effective?
Yeah, so I do drops because it's definitely inspired by the Supreme model of like going on their store and seeing everything sold out. It just makes you want it more. Also for valuing the consumer and the person buying the item, is because when you buy that item and you take that leap of faith, I think that should be like the last time you get it. And that item, like ideally every item goes up in value over time because it's never sold again. So it's a limited item. But that's kind of the drop method, is give them a date that everything's going to be available. Whoever wants it gets it. And then once it's over, and then continue going. The only downfall I see to it is like, I've had some designs that I really love and I've told people that I'm not going to drop them again. So that's that. You can make like a new version of it, a new colorway, but that's like the only downfall to it I see, but everything else is super positive.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of brands that will keep things as like a consistent line that's just
Definitely.
always available. You know what I mean? I always do that with like, there's certain basic designs I've done from the beginning. Like my original store logo, I still will print that on stuff because people still want that, you know?
Yep.
But then you can do the smaller ones. There's so many more tools available, which is part of the reason that you're able to do like more unique designs and stuff like that. What tools besides YouTube University, everyone knows that clearly is incredibly helpful to everybody, so there's not much reason to talk about it, but what other tools have been really helpful to you to help growing the brand, whether it's like going on forums or social media stuff, working with influencers? I know you did billboard stuff. Like, what tools out there have been helpful?
Yeah, like you said, YouTube I'd say is like top. I'd say second to that is trial and error. Like I filled my college bedroom with a sewing machine, then I bought an embroidery machine, and then I had a full screen printing setup in there. And by that point I almost set the whole building on fire. Couldn't walk around, like I had to like jump from my doorway onto my bed, like there was no room in the place. But so that got me far, I'd say, is like testing things, failing. Other than that, like Reddit, forums, stuff like that. But I'd say actually above all that is communicating with other people and like talking to other brand owners, sharing game, providing value to other people because they'll provide it back if they want to. But I think most of the time people are down to share. So I've probably learned the most off of studying other people and talking to other people.
Yeah, I think I always tell people the same two pieces of business advice when they ask me. The first one, and I've said a million times, but I'll keep saying it because it's important. All you have to do is sell yourself as the solution to somebody's needs. That's it. If they think you can solve the problem, the product, the service, the whatever, it doesn't really matter. They just associate Jack can solve this for me. So whatever it is, whatever the price, I'm going to go to him and he's the one I'm going to talk to, which is like pretty brilliant. The second one of it is all you have to do is then find the mutually beneficial situation with somebody, right? And there are people that won't reciprocate periodically, but that's not usually the case because people know if they're not going to reciprocate, other opportunities aren't going to keep popping up. Successful people understand how this works, right? So it really is. If you can provide value to somebody else and let them know what you're also trying to do, you can build a lot of really cool relationships that way. And then those just kind of like go to the next one and the next one and the next one. They just like kind of keep building.
Definitely. And that's why like not burning your bridges is really important in business, I'd say, is keep good relationship with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not incredibly beneficial to you in that particular moment, I like to talk about karma in that way with people, where I say, like, I don't really believe it in the spiritual side of whatever, but it really is just kind of statistically speaking in your space. If you're a jerk to somebody, they probably have mutual friends or no mutual people. They're going to say something at some point that's going to get around that you won't know you missed an opportunity because of it, but you will. Or all these like really lucky things that happen, they're not usually that much luck. Right? It's
Definitely.
about putting that good energy out. You're making these relationships. It's kind of only a matter of time before something pops up where somebody's going to have, oh, Jack's the right person for this. I'm going to hit him up.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? I've had those opportunities happen to me quite a few times. Okay, so I'm in the same kind of position that you are right now, with things have like been going pretty well, right? Not necessarily saying I'm making a bunch of money or whatever, but things are going well, and they're getting to a point where like there's kind of just too much on my plate, really, you know? And I have a problem with I struggle to work with others directly, not in a way of interviewing people, right? Because this is like kind of all in my control for the most part. Like we have a conversation, but then it's up to me to market and promote it, to get it edited and put it out and whatever. It's all kind of under, I can handle all of it. But relinquishing control for me is really hard because I know nobody is going to care as much as I care about it. But it's really kind of limiting and stunting my growth. I know that you're in this position, right? Of like, you kind of have to, if you want to continue to grow Pythia, you have to put some things in other people's hands. How are you kind of like navigating that?
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. As I was watching Shark Tank last night, one of the sharks was a guest guy from London, and I messaged him because he brought up this company has like a logistic global kind of like e-commerce company, and I messaged like, being a one-man team's been awesome so far, but scaling is definitely something that I need to do to take it to the next level. And I think it comes down to adding people to the team and slowly giving them more control, and it really is about trusting them. I can't add people to the team that I have to check up on, everything like that. So it's definitely tricky, but I think as you build the right steps, you'll get more people under you that care as much about the brand as you, and then you can start to trust them to hire people and source people and their friends that they think will care as much. So I think it's definitely a trickle down type of deal, but it's tricky for sure.
Yeah, I struggle with it. Thankfully, this past year, I finally, and I'm not trying to talk down about any employee I've ever had, because I've had a bunch of great ones, but I finally have somebody that like is consistently there, probably more than I am, who's like kind of my general manager at this point. He's been a good friend of mine for years, but the fact that I finally found somebody, dude, I am scrambling so hard to try to make everything blow up enough so that way I can retain him and pay him enough, because I'm like, I need you.
Yeah.
Like, don't leave me ever, please. So yeah, shout out to Mikey. He's he's the best. What are the things that you're kind of struggling with right now besides scaling, as far as like growing? You know, the whole point is to constantly be picking up new things, whether it's learning how to do, you know, embroidery way early on, or there's also vinyl things you can do. There's direct to garment things. What are kind of the things that you're learning right now or kind of struggling with?
I'd say that fulfillment is very challenging for a young brand, because when you're at my scale, you're shipping like 3,000, 4,000 packages a month, and to produce them up front is almost impossible because I don't know how I'd guess the sizes that everyone's going to order. And also you want to, like, people enjoy being able to order what they want, and like a certain size isn't sold out, etc. So I like providing that, but it does take time to produce it quick after, pack it all and ship it all. And by the time that's wrapping up, I'm ready to drop again. So it's juggling all that. I think the solution to it is that I'm looking for warehouses and facilities to just do my fulfillment and open up a fulfillment company to do it for others as well. But it's not incredibly like detrimental right now. It's kind of part of the game. But it's definitely a learning curve for sure.
Yeah, I think people with your industry are used to waiting for things. They don't expect it, you know, next day Amazon. It's just not that. The expectation is different. That's interesting. I didn't realize that when you were doing a drop, you didn't have them physically made already.
No.
That's actually genius, though.
It's so I started with the one-on-ones. Everything would be pre-made.
Yeah.
Then I got into printing and embroidering, and I'd make like 100 to 60. I went up 10 hoodies every time until I was at that 100 mark. Those would be pre-made. I'd ship up until then. I'd ship everything the next day, and that was part of like my my preach, or like that's what I'd say before the drop, and I'd think it would help sales. And I liked getting it out right away. I wanted people with their items. But when I went to like expanding and getting in more people's closets, I definitely needed to open the floodgates, and that It's impossible to guess the size that everyone's going to order, the items amount that everyone's going to order. I'm wrong every single time. I say, this is my favorite shirt, this is my favorite hoodie. It's always like middle, if not bottom. Like I never get the right shirt. But you got to let the people pick. And I think with that, it's so I let them all order, and then it's about getting it finished really quick, packed and shipped. So it's a pre-order type schedule. And then the only other thing that I do that isn't like that is cut and sew. I would never collect orders before a cut and sew item is made, because those things do take a while. So anything cut and sewn or 101 I ship like next day, but if it's a big drop, currently it's like 2 to 3 weeks.
But the cut and sew stuff, it's still at the scale where you're having other people make it now.
Definitely, yeah.
Right? So yeah, that makes sense. Do you do, and I totally wasn't aware of that it was done in a pre-book kind of or in that kind of situation. That makes sense, because before I was going to ask you with the drops what you do with all the leftovers, but since you don't have leftovers, that's obviously kind of the way to do it. I
still make a good amount of leftovers because USPS does lose things, and I like having extras to give out for free. You can never have I'm never bummed about having extras. So yeah, I make them for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of times, the people say your markup or something might be too much with this, that, or whatever, but really what they're not considering is how much is being eaten up by shipping costs, how much is being eaten up by marketing budget, giving things away. But it does kind of make it nice, because then giving away individual items a lot of the times doesn't actually cost you all that much, you know what I mean, because you're already making 100 of them, so what's one extra? It's really not that big a deal. And if you're putting in the hands of people who truly appreciate it, who are then going to wear it and tell people about it, it's worth it from the marketing standpoint. It's not worth it just to ship free things to people constantly, but if they actually really respect what you're trying to do and they want to help, sometimes that's the best way to help them. It's the same way, again, I talked about stickers and stuff. I had some 6-inch stickers of my old skull logo that I have at my store that I just give people for free if they're willing to put it on their car.
Cool.
I'm because I want my logo everywhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? Okay. Well, so now you're kind of expanding. How do you see your time kind of being separated? Oh, one more thing I was going to mention. If you ever want to go back and listen to an episode of the show, which I really think the show would actually benefit you a lot, because I interview creative entrepreneurs for the most part, and you can learn stuff from all those different types of people. But I'm glad that you said you like Shark Tank, because the season finale of my very first season of my show ever was my friend Henry Schwartz, who was on Shark Tank.
Oh, wow.
Which is sick. So he owned a skateboard shop in the neighboring town to me when he was 14. And we're about the same age. So growing up, I was like, who's this kid? How is he doing this? Whatever. And he killed it. And then he ended up getting rid of the shop when he went to college. And then he went and he was on Shark Tank to present this idea for a brewery. And they said yes, but they wanted to change his idea to be a marketing company. And he was like, nah, I'm doing my own thing anyways. Yeah. So he's got this really dope brewery called Mobcraft.
Cool.
And so basically you join the mob online and you submit ideas for beers. And every month, all these people that are fans submit ideas for beers, and it goes through a whole competition. And the winner, they bring that person into the brewery to brew that beer with them.
That's super
And they
cool.
do 1,000 cans or 1,000 bottles or whatever with that person.
And that's marketing right
That's
there.
what I'm saying. It's they probably don't make a ton of money off of that. And then they have all their regular beers too, right? Mm-hmm. But by having something like that completely unique, that's what builds that kind of ownership within their clientele. That's that unique idea
Definitely.
that works for them. But every brand that can find something anything like that, that's where all of a sudden everything gets built. And that's where the one-on-one cut and sews and stuff definitely come in. But anyways, what I was going to say is, how do you expect your time to kind of be split up moving forward? Are you going to be spending a ton of time still designing? Are you going to, basically relinquish most of that to a team and then just kind of oversee things? Or
no, I always see myself as creative director, and because that's what I like doing. I like designing and making things. The only thing that I could see myself kind of outsourcing, but still I don't see that happening for a while. I need to oversee everything for at least 2 more years. But I'd like to get fulfillment and kind of emails and back end kind of stuff. We're in Zoomies now, and I'm looking to get into more retailers. So dealing with product or purchase orders and checking up on manufacturing. Those are all things that I could definitely outsource over time. But I think if I got rid of being in charge of designing and coming up with the ideas for the collections, then what's the point of running a brand?
Yeah, totally. And so Zoomies is like they're like the corporate clothing chain lifestyle brand, right? Which is everything has their own places, right?
It's a skate shop.
Yeah, well, so that's like obviously like a competition to mine in my town, right? Because I own the actual skateboard shop and they're like a mall chain. So
Gotcha.
what I always like to tell people is like, there's nothing wrong with Zoomies by any means, but they're like a lifestyle kind of store, right? And they're obviously focused significantly more on apparel than they are on like skateboards versus like core shops like mine, much more focused on the boards, and then the apparel is kind of secondary anyways. Definitely. So there's like over 600 locations of that store. It's a corporation at this point. It's pretty big. How did that connection even happen? And was that pretty surreal to actually like realize this big of an entity wants your stuff?
Yeah, it was crazy. My buyer had been following Pythia for a while. He purchased one of my crew necks, and it was one of those limited drops, so I shipped it like right away. And he said he got it, and he was like looking at it, and he's like, if this small brand can be doing this on this scale, like let's get them in the store and see what they can do over time. So yeah, it's been awesome. I'm just super stoked to be on the youth. Like I talked about in another interview, like there's so many cool people rocking Pythia and like all these drops online, that when like a little kid sees someone wearing it on the street, I wouldn't have gone up to an older kid and been like, yo, what kind of shirt is that? Or where can I get that? Like, it's just not something you do as a kid. But when you're in the mall, you might recognize that logo, and that's like their entry point into the brand. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Well, yeah, and those are the employees that a lot of the little mall rat kids look up to, right? They want to know what these people think is cool. And obviously like the small, more exclusive things like that, the people at Zoomies are the ones who are like into the fashion and all that stuff. And they're the ones who are pushing it and saying, this is really cool. And then they discover it. So it does, like I said, I don't dislike Zoomies or something. It has its place within everything, within the spectrum of how everything works. It definitely has its place in that space, which is really, really rad, because a lot of fashion things are such a expensive thing to get into that the younger generation doesn't really have a whole lot of access. And Zoomies and Tilly's and like those types of brands, those are the ones that are out there that are kind of like giving that entryway, point for these people. So I always ask the same two questions near the end of the show, and I told you about these ahead of time, so hopefully you had time to think about them. When you pursue your passions for a career, you have a lot of different types of experiences that happen to you that you're really grateful for, ones that are just like, you wouldn't have otherwise. And they're the reason that you continue to do what you do. And we all have like a million of them. I've shared a lot because this is, I don't know, the 80th episode or something. I don't know how many I've recorded, a lot. So I'm running out of really cool ones, but I'm hoping you have one. So can you share a story of a unique experience, something you're grateful for, but it only happened because you chose to pursue your passions?
Definitely. I think it comes back to my Pythia honor roll, which I do every semester for school. This time we're up to 130 students in the group. And if they improve their grade by a grade point, or they get above a 3.4, it is right now, they get a free t-shirt. So through that, just getting the responses of like what that's done for people, and like even if it's just like a little small time bonus, but it provides them like incentive to get good grades, that's something that really fulfills me and makes me happy. Because I remember in school, it was like, especially towards the end when I was running Pythia and like doing computer science at the same time, I was like, what am I here for? And maybe if I had a shirt or something to look forward to, it would have made it a little bit better. So that's definitely what I like.
That's helping. Okay, so I want you to go in depth a little bit more just to explain what that is, because I can kind of gather what you're explaining. That's like kind of genius and such a cool way to give back, in a way that's like, you need to earn this, but I am giving it to you. But just explain it a little bit clearer, because that's an awesome idea.
Thanks. It started off like 2 years ago, my senior year of college, so I was still in school. But I took on 35 kids into a group chat, and it was like, I just want to like meet these people, like give them a little incentive to get a free shirt, and like just give them game. Because I remember when I was in school, something that really helped me go from like a C student to a B student was just emailing my teacher and kind of like being nice to them, or like just not just like ignoring them, I guess, is like telling them you want to do well that first week of school, because then that's in their head. And then on that point forward, if you fail that class, they feel a little bit responsible because you told them you wanted to do well. So just telling them things like that, and hopefully in helping them get through school, is the goal with it. And then since then, it's like I added 35 more kids every semester, and we're at like 140 now. So it's building a really cool community of like kids that are meeting each other across the country, across the world. There's students in there across the world in there right now. So yeah, it's been cool. They're all becoming like friends, and yeah, hopefully they all get their t-shirt.
Yeah, dude. And that's all kind of building the heart of what a brand is too, right? It's like those types of people are the ones that are going to bleed Pythia in the best kind of way. And it's cool because it's like a secondary effect. It's not like you're doing it with the intention of like, hopefully this brings in dollars, but a lot of times it tends to do that anyways. That's kind of the cool part about just like giving back in general. Like I donate to pretty much any event somebody hits me up about in my town that has anything to do with kids. I'm usually like, yeah, sure. Here's a board or shirt or hoodie or whatever. And it's not with the intention of making money, but a lot of times that ends up getting me a good customer that ends up bringing in money anyway. So it's kind of just like this cool win-win.
Definitely.
So can you also share a story of a mistake that you made? Because these are the times that we kind of like learn the most, whether it's like purchasing the totally wrong thing or investing in the wrong person or whatever. Can you share a story of a mistake that you made that taught you something valuable someone listening might be able to benefit from?
For me, I'd say a mistake of mine, like I think we talked about earlier, is like it's just going with your gut. I think if you feel like a situation or a person isn't the best for your interests, like you can protect your energy and focus on yourself. I think a lot of people, especially in LA, you get caught up in trying to work with everyone and trying to do everything. But if you kind of harnessed your energy and like just worked with people on like a friendly level and focused on yourself, you'd see a lot more benefit from that rather than spreading thin for everything.
Yeah. And it's you got to be careful about how much of a piece of something you're working on, like how much trust you're putting into somebody that there hasn't been trust built. And usually I like to explain to people, usually it's not out of like them trying to be deceitful, or there's not usually negative energy there. It's just a differing of expectations because you haven't worked together before. And sometimes you meet somebody or you see an opportunity and you're really excited by it, but you don't have any basis to work off with it yet. So it's like, as exciting as it is to like, let's do this massive project, just try to start small.
I guess
sometimes.
The moral of the story is like, take your time and like really feel things out and protect your energy and focus on kind of what makes you happy and what's going to get you forward till tomorrow. Yeah,
there aren't get rich quick schemes. It doesn't really work that way. You have to build things continuous. And the cool thing about that slow growth is it only gets more and more rewarding over time. You only ever see that go up. There are peaks and valleys to a certain degree, but generally speaking, you can look back every 6 months and see that growth, and that's very encouraging to want to continue. So continuing moving forward, one more time, where can people go see your stuff, whether it's your clothing or your things? Where can they buy stuff? How can they support you moving forward?
Yeah, everything is pretty much ran through the Instagram at Pythia, Pythia. And then through that, I have a website in the bio where you purchase things. Other than that, I have a personal, which is Jack K. Lyons. And I have TikTok as well, but that's kind of, TikTok's more for just like videos behind the scenes if you want to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting to be able to watch that stuff, I think. I don't think people realize how much goes into a lot of these things. They're used to like a sweatshirt as $60. It's like, well, it depends on how much energy goes into this individual piece, you know what I mean? But especially with the one-on-ones and stuff, it's like you're getting something somebody physically spent that much time with. That's why I appreciate like original paintings and stuff. I know that they physically sat there for however long, and like, I'm not saying I can afford everyone's original paintings, but I appreciate it on an entirely different level because of that. And that's what's kind of cool with now with like Procreate and things on people's iPads and stuff, doing all these like videos where it's like, sped up and you get to see the whole process of kind of anything being built, to me is just incredibly interesting. Awesome. Well, thanks so much again for coming on the show. I'm excited to see everything that drops with Pythia, especially because of how much progress you've made, which I'm sure to yourself you feel like you could have done more. But for the amount of progress you've made in 3 years, it's pretty astounding. When I look at like, I've been doing my shop 7.5 years, and I look at yours and I'm like, dude, you are killing it, which means 3 years from now, you're going to be killing it even more. So it's going to be exciting to continue to watch the journey.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.